Alright, everyone, welcome back, and hope you are having a good, nice Sunday afternoon. Welcome back all to Misericorde Volume 2, White Wool and Snow, in which we continue on with Hedwig sleuthing, or semi-sleuthing as you would call it, because she's kind of always messing up here and there, but that's what we're here for, the adventure. And we're going to continue on from where we last left off, so if anything else, I hope you all continue to enjoy. Thank you again for all love and support. Now let's carry on. Alright, welcome back everyone. Oh, hello Margaret. Oh, heh. Eustace and I were just exploring. I noticed. Although, Darcy, I don't want to alarm you, but your eyesight might be going. My what? That isn't Eustace. Darcy squinted and peered at me. I suppose she finally saw through whatever distortion her tincture had caused, because she let go of my hands and took a step back. A sheepish grin crept over her face. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Hedwig, I'm so sorry. It's no trouble. This is too funny. Margaret reached into the barrel she had emerged from to scoop up a bundle of dried meats and hard biscuits. When she stood back up, she must have seen my expression and assumed that I was mortified by what she carried, rather than the kiss she had interrupted. I was hungry. Why'd you take the secret entrance? I would have just let you into the pantry if you'd asked. It's more fun this way. Anyway, you're clearly busy. We weren't. I blurted this out far louder than I intended. Weren't what? Busy. Not really. What were we doing? Well, Eustace had plans, so I stepped in to help Darcy with some of her studies. Any interesting discoveries? This one was no good. Or, well, I don't know. It wasn't bad. But it did make me think Hedwig was Eustace. That does seem rather a large flaw. I find Eustace difficult to miss, what with the expensive spectacles and all. And not only that, it made you think I was your mother, perhaps. Hope not. And the man? No, I don't remember that. That doesn't mean much, to be fair. You forget a lot what these things do to you. Doesn't Eustace typically write it all down? Well, yes. Well, you must have thought I was a man just now. Why else would you try that? Margaret and Darcy exchanged an infuriatingly knowing glance. And here I was thinking I was witnessing our cover story unfolding. What? I definitely thought you were Eustace for the past, I don't know, at least 10 minutes. I was having a wonderful dream, frankly, but I'm sorry for dragging you into it. A dream where you... with Eustace? I couldn't verbalize it. The pair of them looked at me with a mixture of concern and amusement. I hate that sort of dream. The kind where it's just a normal day, and then you have to do it all over again when you wake up. Well, like I was telling you, me and Eustace are in an odd spot at the moment, so it was nice. I was beginning to worry that I was dreaming. If you excuse me. I wobbled away on unsteady legs, leaving Margaret and Darcy to talk about whatever it was they were going to talk about. I rubbed my mouth where Darcy's lips had pressed against me as I wandered back to the cellar toward the stairs. I could still feel the shape of her mouth, could trace the warm oblong shape of it with my finger on my skin. It gave me the shivers, a similar sensation to rubbing a charcoal pencil the wrong way. I wandered through the cloister for a while, eventually, wrenching my hand away from my face to try and appear at ease with myself, even though I was beginning to feel slightly ill. Had I exited my cell to the streets of Sodom? I walked laps around the cloister, fretting all the way. The walls became less and less familiar each time I passed them again. Tears began to well up in my eyelids, although they did not flow freely. They soaked my skin subtly, stinging the corners of my eyes and the little divots by my nostrils. I doubt anyone would have guessed I had been weeping unless they caught my face in exactly the right light, but when I licked my lips, I could taste salt. After countless rotations around the cloister, I took a new turn and broke toward the outer wall, along the path where I had met Catherine some nights ago. Catherine! I sighed and considered all things in perspective. Her sin, I suppose, was at least far beyond Darcy's honest mistake. As honest as one could be under the influence of one of her potions, at any rate. My shock was beginning to give way to simple sourness. I held Darcy in high esteem for our works and visions, but luster of the latter was beginning to dull. If one vision required 10 bizarre random experiences like the one I had just followed her through, could it really be so holy? Moreover, I was beginning to feel embarrassed by my strong feelings. How could I care about this when I knew that there was a true monster inhabiting the Abbey? A real ghost. A real devil. How could we possibly be having a day off? We should have been preparing an exorcism, not running around planting our lips on each other by mistake. Goodness gracious, you look terrible. As if you just saw a ghost. I hadn't noticed Eustace walking along the path toward me, still carrying her fishing implements. I snapped to attention so fast I could see her flinch. Perhaps I have. Steady on, steady on. I was only joking. What's gotten into you? Oh, nothing, it's complicated. I suppose it's my turn to be unduly dressed by all that's happened lately. I thought you were heading out to fish. I was going to, but I thought perhaps I should come back. Something felt wrong about leaving when I did. It looks like I may have been right. Perhaps. What are you up to? Oh, I don't know. I was looking after Darcy, but that's no longer necessary, thank goodness. I was just taking a walk to settle down. She can be a handful. How is she? She seems well. Occupied? I would guess so, yes. Margaret wanted to talk to her about something. Ah, I see. I suppose I have time to fish after all then. Would you like to come along? I don't know the first thing about fishing. It mostly involves sitting still. I suppose I could do that, yes. Selfishly, I imagined that spending time away from the Abbey itself might put me in an ever so slightly less danger. There was no real logic to it, of course, but I held a spurious connection in mind between the demon and the walls of the Abbey itself. Wonderful. The walk to Eustace's fishing spot wasn't too long, but it did take us away from the road onto a barely beaten trail into the woods. The path sloped downward and was occasionally interrupted by fallen branches and logs that required some effort to maneuver over or around. We did not speak for a while. I welcomed the silence, truth be told. It allowed me to absorb the sounds of the forest. I realized halfway into the journey that I was hearing more new sounds in rapid succession than I had ever before in my life. There are only so many sounds within stone walls. Here in the forest there were creaks, cracks, thuds, groans, and sharp bird song. It was somewhat overwhelming. As I hopped over a fallen log blocking the way behind Eustace, I experienced an odd sensation. My hands, digging into the bark as I adjusted my weight to swing my leg awkwardly over to the other side, felt as if they could feel more. I cannot think of a better way to describe it. I know it sounds rather ridiculous, but hearing all of the sounds of the mysterious outdoors, running the rough texture of wood under my fingers, fabric branching up against my legs as I shifted my weight, it was too much for my soul to bear at once. I felt my eyes flicker upward, and I felt so dizzy that my dismount from the log nearly ended with me face down the dirt. Are you alright back there? Yes, I don't know. I went a bit funny there for a moment. You look a little off balance. Do you need to eat something? Goodness no. Luncheon was more than enough for me earlier. I think I'm just having a lot of thoughts about being, outside. You've been outside a few times now. The woods are a new place. There's a lot of noise and lots of new things. I just got distracted. That makes sense. She turned to continue down the trail, but kept talking as she forged ahead. You had me worried there. Reminded me of Charity a bit. Oh? I shouldn't divulge. It's not my business, but she's got a condition. Oh no. Does Moira know? Yes. It doesn't really matter though. There's not much that can be done about it. I've never noticed anything amiss with Charity. You haven't heard her going out to use the latrine 4 times a night? I suppose I'm a sound sleeper. I could hear a new sound as we continued onward, like my old faucet, but somehow wider, deeper. I like how the sound just suddenly got creepier. Like the ocean, but calmer, lighter. This is supposed to be a calming excursion to go fishing, not a freaking creepy ass, adventure. I don't know, man. Here we are. We had emerged from the tree line onto a grassy embankment. The knee of a modest stream bent in front of us. Eustace put her bucket down and immediately set to work erecting a contraption out of the pole and stick she was carrying. Sit down anywhere. Would you like some help? No, this is just for me. Very well. I glanced beneath me to try and find a good seat, but nothing stuck out in particular. It was all dirt and grass. Just sit. Your bum is gonna get soggy no matter what out here. I gingerly sat down. My habit was thick enough that it was surprisingly comfortable. Damp, but not sodden. The cold ground gave me a jolt when I first touched down, but after a few minutes, I was pleasantly situated. I was suddenly revulsed, however, when I saw what Eustace's bucket had been carrying. Oh, worms. Bait. Yeah. What? They're just worms. Whatever for? She reached into the bucket as if it were nothing, and swiftly plucked one worm out from the horrid tangle. Bait. She expertly speared the creature into the sharp hook dangling from her fishing pole. My reaction were all over the place today. I despised looking at the pulsating creatures, but I did not want to see it harmed either. Poor thing. Just wait until you see what I have to do to the fish if I catch one. I squirmed in the dirt. I thought this was meant to be relaxing. It is, deeply. Is this not cruel? I don't think so. But you're killing something. Two things even. Fish and worms. Are you concerned for their souls? You know as well as I do they don't have souls. Well then, time to relax. She threw the hook and line into the center of the stream, then joined me on the ground. You'll soon see. It isn't even about the fish, really. That does not put me at ease. Shh! To scare them away. I held my tongue and tried to enjoy our surroundings instead. I leaned back on my hands and looked up into the tree canopy. The sky was a bright white gray. It was surprisingly hard to look at for too long. I'm glad Flora is well. Ah. Yes. It was quite an ordeal. What happened? Well, I heard a loud noise in the middle of the night. And when I went to investigate, I found that it was coming from my old cell. And there she was, sure enough. Being chased. I had no reason to lie to Eustace at this point. Unlike the others, she had already correctly assessed what I was up to. After our explosive argument in the garden, the true story would be difficult for Eustace to argue against. I knew she could not have been the ghost. In a sense, she was the only person I could trust with these details. Eustace seemed to know this. Her expression was measured, and she stared at the hook, bobbing in the stream rather than turn to speak to me directly. And what was chasing her? A monstrous creature. The same one that I saw wielding that burning blade. It was huge and full of fire, and it smelled of brimstone and sulfur. I know it couldn't have been you. Eustace rubbed her sleeve against her nose. Brimstone is rather hard to get out of cloth. Please don't joke. So, you were menaced by a devil of some sort. Yet here you are. Don't you find that a little odd? Well, you must be strong. I hear demons are quite dangerous. I think Flora and I were just lucky. If this monster is real and wanted you dead, I think it would have killed you. Perhaps it didn't want to kill us. Perhaps. Perhaps it wanted to possess you. I tensed up. My fingers dug into the dirt involuntarily. That did not happen. That's what someone possessed by a demon would say. She slowly turned her head back toward me, her expression solemn. As our eyes locked, I felt panic flushing through me. I needed her to believe that I had seen what I had seen, but not like this. Only joking. Oh. Heh. Heh. So you saw a giant thing chasing Flora. Her leg gets caught in the door, and it just lets both of you go? Is that right? Yes, and I encountered it again in the back courtyard. And you escaped it again? You are lucky. It wasn't so much an escape. It just stood there. And then I turned around and ran. I'm erring toward not believing a word of this again, just so you know. It is the truth, Flora will tell you the very same. Only don't ask her, I'm sworn to secrecy. I'm not sure how good her word is either, truth be told. She sighed and looked out at the fishing lure bobbing in the water once more. It would just be simpler if you would admit you were horseplaying on the wall and she fell off or something of sort. Well, that wouldn't be true. Forgive me, but it is all a bit difficult to swallow. How do you think I feel? I think it's easier for you to believe than it is for me. Of course it is. I saw it. That's not what I mean. Never mind. No. Go on. You spent your whole life up until now in a little cell, reading books filled with demons, miracles, etc. That makes me more reliable, surely. I thought back to when the superior dragged me out of my cell. I was a pair of fresh eyes on the mystery of Catherine's death. I have as an untainted view of the world as anyone could have. Surely what I described is unburdened with worldly context and what-ifs as possible. Do you really believe that? Do you honestly think that your eyes see a clearer truth than mine? Your cell didn't keep you in some fresh, undriven state. In fact, you have more of a bias than any of us. Tenfold easily. I've read nothing but scripture and commentaries. I know, and I'm telling you that the scripture and commentary bouncing around your mind doesn't all add up to zero. They aren't some sort of universal default. Your mind is as full as any of ours, if not more so. Now you're being mean-spirited. No, I am not. Give yourself some credit. Do you have the mind and will of a newborn baby? No. No. You are an intelligent 20-year-old woman. That intelligence might come from a very narrow pool of experience, but it was experience all the same. I suppose I understand. Good. There was a brief pause as Eustace adjusted how she was sitting and squinted into the water, checking the lure for activity. 30-year-old woman, I think. Being cooped up all that time was good for your skin. She lurched forward suddenly as the string attached to the pole went taut. I touched my forehead in confusion. My skin felt as pallid and greasy as it always did. Another attempt at Eustace's to befuddle me, I reasoned. Eustace pulled the line in hand over hand and eventually dragged a small fish onto the shore. There we are. She held it up by the tail and removed the hook in its mouth. Then, without warning, she smacked it against the rim of the bucket hard. What was that for? You have to kill them or throw them back. This one looks tasty, so I killed it. Such violence. Eustace sighed and dropped the dead fish into the bucket. I have to admit, I did not foresee fishing being such an obstacle for you. But perhaps that's my fault. There are a lot of things most people don't think about that you're seeing for the first time. Stairs, chessboards, greeting customs. Nothing. Have it your way. But answer me this. What are you gonna do now? About what? Don't play dumb. About your inquisition. Well, I pondered for a moment. I believe I must keep sticking my nose in things. I'm sorry. I can't pretend I'm happy to hear that. But I understand that I would probably feel the same in your position now. All I can do now is ask you to reconsider. To stop. Why? Because you will get hurt well before you find any answers. And you will put us all in danger. This isn't just about you or me. This is about everyone here. You saw what happened to Flora. So you don't believe that I saw a ghost, but you insist I stop. You speak as if you know what it all means. Must I have stuck my hand into a rose bush to be wary of its thorns? I don't know what it is. I barely even believe you're sure what you saw. But I know that whatever it is, it's no good. There must be some connection to Catherine, though. You keep on mentioning danger waiting for me if I keep following Superior's orders. And if this is the danger, they must be related. You know something clearly, so maybe it is Catherine. What? It makes about as much sense as existing at all, doesn't it? Say I believe you wholeheartedly, that what you saw is real, and that you and Flora were chased by a vengeful demon. Is it such a large leap to wonder if it is Catherine? Or related to her in some way? Yes! Why would it be? I cannot entertain such a dark thought. What possible evidence would there be that could connect the two? What evidence do you have that it happened at all? Anyway, Flora and Catherine. There is some history there. Unpleasant history. I went cold as I recalled the history I had heard about Flora being locked inside a trunk by Catherine. One of the hazing pranks spoken about in irritated whispers by the Superior had been my assumption. I was vaguely aware of that, actually. So there you go. I'm not saying that is what it is, of course. But, you know, it is something to think about. What would we do if that were true? What difference would it make if I did or didn't keep my promise to the Superior to investigate what happened to Catherine? When you first saw the beast, what were you doing? I was on the landing. Doing what? Looking for Flora. As part of my investigation to Catherine's death, I suppose. I was worried her disappearance was connected. So, in this scenario, if we pretend monsters are real, it seems logical to assume that you are being warned away from something by the ghost. And what was Flora doing? I don't know. She had been in my old cell. That's very interesting. Follow that thought. I like how she's kind of helping her with her investigations, if not in a more indirect approach, because she's also telling her to back off because she knows something, obviously. And even if she doesn't know something, she's wary and very concerned for everyone else. I still don't know if this girl here, if Eustace is someone to be trusted or someone to just be just as wary of, if not more so, because she hasn't given me a reason to trust her as of yet, even since the previous installment of the game. She suddenly yanked another fish out of the water. She continued speaking as she inspected the size. Flora and Catherine were very close for a while until they weren't. There is a connection there. If you want to investigate something, look into that. And then what? And then stop, God willing. And then what? Just wait to die, or worse, when this beast strikes again? I have a theory about that. A theory? It seemed preposterous to me to ascribe any sort of logic to devilry, but I was too curious to object. A dark sense of suspicion, perhaps not of Eustace herself, but of what she knew, began to creep through me. I can't help but wonder if it will leave us alone if things just remain as they were. That seems a tall order when someone might have been murdered. I know, but consider that there had never been so much as a whisper of hauntings until Catherine passed. That isn't true, is it? Darcy makes it sound like this place has always been a little odd for one. I mean, Darcy, no disrespect, but you cannot always take her at her word. Anyway, Catherine's gone, and you keep seeing this monster, and now Flora has as well, if I entertain your story. I suspect she might have been poking around after Catherine's death as well, which is why it attacked her and you both. You really think it could be her? I honestly think I should feel offended at the very idea. Used to shrug. Perhaps it's her, perhaps it's simply related to her passing. I'm not too concerned with the actual mechanics of it, to be perfectly honest. I'd prefer to stay well away. I've just observed the pattern, and that's enough for me to not want to go chasing threads related to Catherine's death. It should be enough for you as well, like I told you before. I am looking out for you, you know. I'm looking out for all of us. I stared into ripples of the stream, considering Eustace's words. It was infuriatingly rather sound reasoning. Nobody seemed to recognize the ghost I had described on that first night I witnessed it. They concluded it was a prank immediately. Nobody claimed to recognize the creature, and when Eustace had dressed up as that same beast to scare me, it had been based on my description, and it had genuinely terrified everybody else in the room. I've recounted the times I had seen the terrible apparition. Outside my window, after the superior had told me her plan for me. In the hall when I had been sleeping outside the Misericorde. On the landing above me when I was observing the sword in the cloister. Looming above me in the garden when I had been looking for Flora. And then finally, of course, the attack when I had finally found her. I still cannot make out what the hell that is. Is that a goat's head? These indeed were all connected to my search for the truth about Catherine. There was one small detail nagging at me, however. When we were traveling back up the mountain from the village, you seemed to hold visions, apparitions, and so on in very low regard. What has changed? A moderately convincing eyewitness account. Isn't this what you wanted? For me to change my mind? Goodness, Hedwig. Learn to accept victories when you've earned them. I feel like she's deflecting. Well, that is heartening. I propose a deal. Stay out of it. Stay out of it truly for 1 week. If nothing happens, I win. We accept that Catherine's death was a tragedy that affected us all deeply and move on. Or, you can lie to her and tell her you accept the deal and continue, your investigation and see if anything does happen. Because if something does happen, then she's a liar and she's hiding something from us. If something does happen, I will leave you be. And we can chase whatever the ghost is together. Does that sound fair? I was beginning to lose track of the amount of packs I had entered. I felt a deep unease, but I just couldn't imagine refusing Eustace in this instance. Especially a dark voice inside of my head whispered when we were alone in the woods. That sense of suspicion had not been abated by this proposal. and I started to wonder just how much Eustace knew that she was not telling me. She knew enough, man. She knows enough. Like, half the times I'm very suspicious of her, and then there are times when she says certain things that kind of alleviate my suspicion. And then she does this, which again brings me right back to, you know, freaking suspecting her. I never liked her though. Like, at first I was trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, but now I cannot accept her. She's going through a lot of trouble to keep me away from this investigation. Remember, I am trying to help you, and I will, no matter which way things break. But, very well then. My stomach churned. I had no intention of honoring such an idea. Perhaps I should have. Complete Chapter 3. That was Chapter 3? Love thyself. Felt like a short chapter. Oh, I walked back to the Abbey. It was far less peaceful. The sounds of the forest in that changed, but the turmoil inside me was far louder than any wind, bird, or cracking twig. When I was very young, I watched a rowboat tip over when one too many people scrambled to fit inside it. It's one of the strongest memories from before I became an anchoress. Perhaps my only complete memory from that period. I felt like that rowboat now. I was not built to hold this much weight or movement. I grimaced to myself as I recalled all the secrets, pacts, and threats I held. The superior's demands. Flora's plea for secrecy. Catherine's whorish behavior. Angela's assumed pact. Eustace's ability to look right through me and the lie I had just told to make her happy. And above all else, my broken oath. My promise to God, now in tatters for weeks. Not only was I no longer an anchoress in his service, I barely made time for him at all. I did not recite all the hours. I no longer prayed as I once did. I no longer labored over scripture. I could feel my knowledge of the world slipping away letter by letter. There was a point in my life where I could recall most any passage from memory. Now I was beginning to worry that my grasp on scripture was about to be pushed out of my mind to make room for these sins. There was no room left in my little rowboat. Did Eustace know I spoke until we were back inside the walls of the cloister? Thanks for coming. I hope the fishing experience wasn't too traumatic for you. It was certainly full of surprises. I suspect you won't be so conflicted when it comes time to eat these. We can fry them up later if you like. Supper's already planned, surely. Have you never had a midnight snack? I'll come collect you later when it's time. That sounds lovely. I wasn't completely sure what was so exciting about eating fish on a different day than was usual, but I was more occupied by Eustace's sudden friendliness. It felt fairly obvious to me that Eustace wanted to keep an eye on me after my promise. I couldn't go snooping around the Abbey late at night if I was busy supping with her. Clever. I was about to turn and leave when she spoke up once more. Darcy went back to the dorms probably, yes? I must assume so. I last saw her with Margaret in the cellars, but she was rather worn out after drinking the tincture. Right, thank you. Fish tonight. Don't forget. I won't. Excuse me. She nodded, scurried off toward the cloister. I'm not proud to admit that my immediate thought after she left was to break my promise to her. Hell yeah, do it. I don't trust her. I don't trust her, so do it. Let's put my theory to the test. Tell her yes, and then lie and continue investigation. Let's go. At that moment, it seemed like the perfect time to investigate what exactly Flora had been doing in my cell. I walked to the stairs, slowly making sure that Eustace was far enough ahead to miss me following close behind her. After climbing the stairs, I scampered across the landing, relieved to see that nobody else was between me and the crossing where I'd first seen the ghastly demon. I slowed a little. The same crossing where it had chased Flora and I. To my left, the door that crushed her leg. I turned to the right and walked forward a bit until I came to the corner, facing right again, staring into the darkness of the old hallway. Mine saw at the end, beckoning through the ink. See, here's the thing. Bold. She's very bold, and I'm glad she's continuing her investigation anyway. However, and as hard as this is, I would try and find someone I trust to come with me. There's no way in hell I'm going to these dark-ass halls alone. Oh, no. Eustace's theory rang inside my head like a bell. I stepped forward. It was dark in here, but it was broad daylight outside. If Eustace could find confidence in Spiri's connection, so could I. No devil would chase me into the sunlight. I felt very brave for the first few steps, but halfway through the corridor I began to second-guess myself. Still, I pushed ahead. I had to know. What had Flora seen? I could simply ask her, but after talking to Eustace, I was beginning to suspect Flora might not be completely forthcoming. So then I guess we have to see for ourselves what she saw. Oh boy. I arrived at the door to my cell, my heart beating out of my chest. I was shaking now. Still full of courage, but for how much longer I could stand being here alone was anyone's guess. I hastily reached out to open the door, only to discover. Oh hell! I swore under my breath and then felt ashamed. The door was locked. I tried the handle again, but it did not budge. That was very odd indeed. How had Flora gotten in then? I backed away from the door for a moment to consider. The darkness made me shiver. Had somebody come to lock it after the fact? That seemed the most plausible explanation, only I could not imagine any reason why. I would need to ask the superior for the key if I were to investigate this any further. I exhaled, then briskly walked back toward the light in the landing. As I emerged from the bend in the long hall to the dorms came to view, I slowed to a more normal pace. Nobody was there, thank goodness. I jogged lightly to the stairs and took them down faster than ever before, nearly tripping as I turned on the landing to see. Hello, Sister Hedwig. Where are you in such a hurry? Oh, I was actually on my way to see the superior. I would not suggest doing so at this time. I was just at her door and received a strong telling off. Oh dear. I think she's busy. Or perhaps she's brooding. I think this Flora incident upset her a great deal. It was very upsetting, although she did seem relieved last night. Jubilee and so on. That is true. But I would not be surprised if she changed her mind or found something else to be upset about. Does that happen often? Adela threw her head back and let out a sharp cackle. Aside from you, I am the newest sublet here, and even I have seen this many times. Our superior is very gracious until she is not. That's good to know. How are you making the most of your day off? Oh, this and that. I actually just went fishing with Eustace. Really? Wow. I've been wanting her to take me for ages. Is that so? Don't worry, I'm not jealous. I think that when I last asked her, she was busy courting Darcy. Courting? Forgive me for making salacious jokes. You understand what I mean, though. Of course. I had no idea what you were talking about. Did she win? Win? It appears I'm speaking out of turn. I just assumed that was what you meant by fishing. Oh, Hedwig went on a fishing trip with Eustace. Adela jolted as Margaret emerged behind her. I had my money on Moira until earlier, but then I assumed Darcy had won. Had everyone decided to start speaking a different language while I was visiting my old cell? Let us avoid being rude. Hedwig is clearly confused. Not that confused, I imagine. She offered me a wink, but I was still baffled. Utterly confused, I'm afraid. Margaret's cheeky grin faded a little and Adela tugged her sleeve. We should go. We're off to enjoy some chess in the library. Yes, that's right. You can join us later, Sister Hedwig. Give us a moment or two, though, obviously. She was on her way to talk to the superior. Oh, good. Hope you aren't in trouble or anything like that. Not that I'm aware of. None of us are in any sort of trouble. We're all upstanding daughters of the Lord. Both of them started snickering as they carried up on the stairs without me. What on earth was all that about? I had been left thoroughly baffled by their behavior. A pair of giggling children that's what they seemed to me, speaking in some bizarre made-up language designed to annoy me. I felt positively steamed by the time I made it to the superior's door. You know what? I'll take that over scared any day. Who did those girls think they were? I knocked with some trepidation, hoping that I wouldn't end up on the receiving end of the superior's bad mood. The knock remained unanswered, just long enough for me to raise my hand to knock once again. However, as soon as I did, I heard the faintest rumble of movement to the thick wooden door. Who calls? Sister Hedwig. Once again? Come in then. The superior was still in her nightclothes and looked even more haggard. The lines of her face looked deeper than usual, and there were dark circles under her eyes that reminded me of Darcy's puffy lids. It was stuffier than usual in her office, and it smelled rather stale. I took a seat in front of the grand desk while she tottered over to the window to open it a crack before sitting down to address me. What is it you need, Hedwig? I just need the key to my old cell. I think there might be a clue in there as to what happened to Sister Flora. Cell? But... She looked confused, as if searching for words. I wondered if this is what it felt like for others to talk to me. I apologize. I'm still not fully awake. What was it you needed again? I tried the cell door not long ago, and it was locked. If I could just have the key, I might be able to piece together what happened to poor Sister Flora, and determine if it had anything to do with Catherine. I see. The cell key. Yes. She pulled open a drawer and fumbled for a moment before producing a large key ring. It jingled as she fiddled with the mechanism to remove the key I needed. The sound sent a shiver up my back. She tossed the key toward me. It landed on the desk with a clatter, and I could see the superior wince with regret. Thank you. What do you think you're going to find? I'm not sure, but I know she was there before I found her. She came running out that hall when you saw a ghost. Even in her adult state, she was able to lace those words in venom. So you're still unwilling to tell the truth. I am being as truthful as can be. I can only tell you what I saw, however ridiculous it might seem. If you can't be honest with me, at least be honest with yourself. You realize how ridiculous this story is, surely. It really does sound absurd, but I can only describe what I saw with my own eyes. I've been thinking about that. You're a clever girl, but you are new to the world in your own way. Must you take your eyes at the world, or must you take your eyes at their word, or, you know, their vision? You understand my meaning. What else could it have been? The spirit opened a lower drawer and produced the same wine bottle she had offered me to drink it from in one of our previous meetings. She set about sloppily pouring 2 glasses. I don't know. It was rather dark, I imagine. A dog? It would have to be a rather enormous dog. And that wouldn't explain the haze. Haze? It was engulfed in smoke. It was rather pungent, too. It was horrible. Perhaps a bear, then? Why on earth would there be a bear here? Shh! Not so loud. Sorry. Anyway, you never know with bears. I was thinking this, what the hell is a bear doing in the cloister? You don't seem often, of course, but perhaps one wandered on a road menagerie. I was thrown back to the conversation in the Misericorde where Angela's fear of bears had been thoroughly mocked. It really does not seem plausible. More plausible than a spirit? No, actually, spirits are more plausible than a bear being in here. Bears are real at the very least. I can offer no argument there, I suppose. What are you talking about? You guys believe in the Holy Spirit. Spirit's in the Word. Souls, ghosts, come on. Thank goodness. But, Hedwig. But I can say that there's no satisfactory explanation to the contrary. The spirit drummed her fingers on her desk and exhaled sharply through her nose. Well, you have your key. Go and find whatever it is you hope to find. I think I might have preferred a tirade to the wounded tone she spoke in. My intent had not been to defeat her, but the crack in her voice made me feel like I had her at the end of the blade. I spun the key between my fingers, searching for something to say that would redeem me. You know, I spoke to Eustace about some of this, and she does seem rather suspicious. Oh? I almost told her about Eustace's demand that I leave things be. Before I did, however, I realized that telling the superior that I had already been compromised was a bad idea. Yes. Well, follow up on that as well when you can. Of course. Thank you for your reverence. She waved a hand at me and I left with haste. I hurried back through the cloister to the stairs so I could return to my old cell once more. As I reached the second floor, I froze for a moment. I could hear Eustace's voice coming from the dormitory hall. It would be terrible if she caught me breaking my promise to her not an hour after making it. I held for a moment, trying to determine if she was bogged down in a long enough conversation for me to slip past undetected. Tonight, does that sound fun? It does sound fun. I can't help but detect some sarcasm. No sarcasm. You always detect sarcasm when you're worried. No, that isn't true. You sound a little upset. No, I don't. You, very well. I'll take your word for it. It does sound fun. I would like to do it. That's great. Are you sure you're feeling alright? Yes. You're sure? Yes. Why wouldn't I be? Because it really is not a problem. Not as big of a problem as you seem to be worried about anyway. But it is a problem. A little bit of a problem, but not that big of a problem. This seemed to be going nowhere, so I slipped past and jogged lightly back toward my old cell. Yeah, this conversation. I have a feeling it's going to lead to something about her, but whatever. This time I approached the impossible darkness at full speed. I braced myself as it surrounded me. I hadn't thought to bring a candle with me. I was only looking for a door after all, and there was a window in the cell. I could just make out the outline of the door frame and lock when I approached it. I produced the key and fumbled for the keyhole. The shaft slid in with a satisfying clunk. It took more force than I had anticipated to twist the mechanism open, and it took me a couple of turns, but I was soon inside. My old cell. I'd come back here once before not long ago. I had been accompanied by a superior then, and while it had been emotionally overwhelming, it was nothing compared to what I felt now. I was standing alone, where I had been meant to stand alone for my whole life. And what had I been looking for again? I shut the door behind me. It was pitch black in here, but I scarcely needed to see. So familiar a space this was. I felt strangely invigorated. I paced across the room to open the cell window. Light cascaded across the floor. Oh, how I had missed this. What had I been looking for again? I sat on the edge of my old bed and stared at the patterns in the stone beneath me. Some strange feeling was running up and down my body all across my skin. I could feel everything in vivid detail. Threads of the bed covering in which I sat. Crumbs between my fingers. Air moving in and out of my nose, over my lips as I breathed. Fabric against my skin. My left leg began to bounce up and down out of sheer nervous energy. The patterns in the floor were so inviting. What had I been looking for again? I was restless. I left the bed and fell to my knees on the floor, spreading my hands across the cool flagstone. It felt good. I laid down and pressed my cheek against the stone. That too felt good, but it was not enough. What had I been looking for again? Hastily, I stood up and practically yanked my robe off over my head. I stripped bare, kicking off my leggings and underclothes, and tossing everything into an unkempt ball in the corner of the room. I lay down again. This time I felt satisfied. What the hell are you doing? The cold gray stone felt so right against my skin. I could feel my whole shape, if that makes any sense in the slightest. The tingling sensation where my body met stone created a map of myself in my mind. There was my shoulder. There was my knee. There was each side of my face as I rolled it back and forth across the floor. There were my fingertips as they slid across the tiles. There was my mouth unceremoniously caught on a slightly raised piece of stone, the hairs brushing against. What had I been looking for again? Then I heard something. I had never moved so quickly in my whole life. Not even in the night where I had sprinted between the hospitalum and the abbey had I moved with such swiftness. It was a miracle that I heard anything at all. It was just in time, one light footstep approaching the heavy door, echoing just enough to warn me. I scooped up my discarded clothes and launched myself under my old bed in one undignified motion. Uh-oh, who's this? My elbow caught against it as I slid beneath. Thank God the sound was masked by the door creaking. I resisted my need to yelp in pain, biting my lower lip so hard I could taste blood. Someone entered the cell. Excuse me. I could see the hem of their robe and their shoes, but little else. I pressed myself as far back against the wall as I could. I was lucky that the only things I used to store under here were the pen and brush. My heart stopped as I remembered the open window. Thankfully, when the intruder noticed, she simply sighed irritably and made to close it. A moment later, I heard a thump on the bed above me. Was she sitting? No. More footsteps. The door closed, and that was that. I remained huddled under the bed for a few minutes, breathing heavily. That had been one of the closest brushes with discovery yet, and I could scarcely bear to think about it. Not only would I have been exposed as a snoop and a spy, I would have been cast as some sort of pervert. What had I been doing? What had I been looking for again? I pondered these embarrassing questions as I gingerly pulled myself out from underneath the bed, certain now that the intruder had left. I scanned the dark room once more, clearer-headed than I had been when I entered. The shelves were all the same as I had left them. The desk was as I had left it as well. If my mysterious visitor hadn't entered to deposit something on this bed, this would have been an utterly fruitless endeavor. There was nothing in here that stood out as the obvious reason for Flora to have hidden here. I furrowed my brow. It was hard to believe this was worth breaking my promise to Eustace. That could be Eustace that visited. I turned to the bed, hoping that whatever had been dropped on the mattress by the intruder would make some sort of sense. It was a book, just like one of the ones I would have used in transcription. I picked it up and rifled through the pages, hoping to find something that had made the transgression worthwhile. Empty. Completely and totally empty. I sighed. I was beginning to grow tired of being bombarded with new questions and mysteries. I was amassing quite a collection of mysterious books. I walked over to the window and cracked it open once again, hoping that sunlight would reveal something on the pages. Perhaps messages scratched into the pages without ink or... Hedwig, is that you? All blood drained out of my face. A tiny figure was waving at me cheerfully from down below the window. Hello, Hedwig. I can see your tits.
I panicked and moved away from the window. I scrambled under the bed to recover my clothes and pulled them out as fast as I could. Perhaps if I moved quickly enough, I could convince Catherine that she hadn't seen anything at all. It had been a trick of the light. I had been in my room, my dorm room, this whole time. I finished dressing myself and grabbed the book from the bed. I scurried out of my cell and shut the door, my hands trembling. Then I sprinted full speed down the hall toward the corner, hoping I could make it to the dormitory before Catherine could catch me. I ran as fast as I could, but alas. Hedwig, my dear. She too had been moving with haste, it seemed. She crested on the top of the stairs just ahead of me, a look of wicked triumph on her face. Just the woman I was hoping to run into. Hello, Catherine. I must say, you're looking a little more put together than when I last saw you. At luncheon? Ha! Oh, you are positively adorable when you're in trouble. Isn't she, Margaret? Oh, no. Yes, so true, Catherine. Margaret was not far behind Catherine, although it looked like running had taken more of a toll on her. I swear, Hedwig, you're the only one that would get yourself in this kind of trouble. Are you winded, Margaret? Keep up. You're fitter than I am. You know I was busy. I'm not to be underestimated as long as I have time to prepare. She joined her friend, attempting to match Catherine's smirk through heavy breaths. I think the three of us are long overdue for a little chat. Wouldn't you agree, Hedwig? Just as girls. I've long considered the three of us very tightly knit clique. I couldn't agree more. Why don't you come with us? Where? The cellars are lovely at this time of day. The cellars are lovely at this time of day. There was no wiggling out of this, whatever this was. That sounds like a grand idea. Wonderful. She put her arm around me and pulled me close, her fingers digging into my shoulder as she guided me down the stairs. We have a lot to catch up on. Too true. The mischievous pair practically dragged me through the cloister toward the cellar stairs. Oh, well, we'll have so much fun, the three of us. Why do you look so worried, Hedwig? Do I? Another woman was emerging from the cellar stairs ahead of us. At first, I was relieved. Perhaps she would intervene in whatever scheme these two had for me. Alas. What on earth are you three doing? Oh, just us girls having a little fun at our impromptu holiday. Is Hedwig well? She looks as if she's seen a ghost. Oh, Hedwig's just having a wonderful time. Oh, God. A little too much wine, perhaps. I think a little more wine won't fix. Angela sneered. You could be doing something far more productive with your time, all of you. So true, and yet, here we are. Alas. Life can be so cruel. Indeed it can. Thank God for a good drink. And good company, incidentally. Would you fuck off away, Angela? Thank you ever so much. Angela rolled her eyes and strolled the other direction toward the superior's office. Catherine squeezed my shoulder and continued to steer me as we made our way to whatever meeting place in the cellars my kidnappers had in mind. I hope to discover that Martin and Flora might be down here, tending to the barrels, ruining whatever Catherine and Margaret had in store for me. Unfortunately, it was utterly empty in the cellars. I was guided through the rows of barrels to a familiar spot. Margaret opened the lid of one of the casks and crawled through. Catherine bade me do the same, finally letting go of me. It was a slightly awkward squeeze, but I soon emerged in a small pantry. It smelled quite pleasant. Salted meats and dried fruits lined the shelves, and strings of sausage and herbs dangled from the string around the ceiling. Margaret seemed quite at home here. Catherine followed behind me, and after leaning back into the makeshift tunnel to close the false cask lid, she lit a candle resting on a makeshift cask table in the center of the small room. Under any other circumstances, it would have felt quite cozy, but the dark grins on my captors' faces kept me uneasy. Catherine opted to stand rather than lean. She loomed over me, looking quite pleased with herself. So, Hedwig, my dear, who were you buffing? We're done with chapter 4? Damn, we went through two chapters? The life of I was going to say the Bergen, because it looked like a bee. Virgin. Right. Buffing? Come now. You aren't in trouble, Hedwig. I'm not a priest. We're just curious. I don't know what the words means. Oh, what fun. We get to teach you all sorts of new things now. Catherine told me, I think, she was quite in a hurry. She saw you fucking somebody. Not quite. I caught her post-coital, I believe. No, you did not. Hedwig, you simply must relax. There really is nothing to be afraid of. We wouldn't dream of using this information against you. Oh God, I know they would. Perish the thought. We're just curious. I don't know what you think you saw, but... Oh ho, was it Eustace? That's unmistakable Eustace linguistic trickery that there. I believe that you believe, and so on. Eustace could well be rubbing off on her. And then some. It was not Eustace. Oh? Who was it then? Nobody. Oh, Hedwig, do get over yourself. I saw you naked as anything in a secluded little room of the Abbey. What were you doing out there anyway? Oh, there's no use trying to turn this around on me, Hedwig. I'm afraid the game is up. So much for that. How could it possibly be anybody? I am unmarried, and what's more, I couldn't lay with anybody here. Why ever not? She must have very high standards. How would it work exactly? Nobody here is a man. Catherine and Margaret looked at each other for a moment, then burst out laughing. Hedwig, darling, why would that matter? Who needs a cock when fingers will do? Well, you seem to need one every now and then. Yes, well, nothing beats the real thing but any pour in a storm. I felt faint. I was practically seeing double. So you were just prancing around nuding yourself for the fun of it? All by yourself? I find that incredibly difficult to believe. Well, if you witnessed what I witnessed, you would believe it. I'm not so sure. I must say, I'm close to buying the Innocence Act here. Unbelievable. I saw her little bitty teats and everything. Maybe she was just getting dressed. In her old cell? Oh, Hedwig? I was scarcely keeping it together. The book I had found in my cell slipped from my hands. I was looking for this. What is that? A Bible? Margaret picked it up and quickly ran the pages between her fingers. It's empty. Yes, I wanted a blank book. I've been itching to do some more writing and illumination ever since I left my cell. And I didn't want to steal one of the books earmarked for my chronicles. Liar, liar, liar. How'd you get in? The cell's supposed to be locked. Well, the superior gave me the key. She'll tell you if you ask. Margaret and Catherine exchanged a glance. I believe her, actually. It all makes sense, I suppose, save for one teeny tiny detail. She stepped forward and grabbed my chin, squeezing my cheeks together as she commanded me to meet her smug gaze. Why in God's name would any of that require you to strip naked and bare yourself to the whole wide world? Catherine, I don't know. Maybe she was just, taking a little time for herself. She could do that in her own room. Perhaps she just needed a change of scenery. Catherine looked slightly disappointed. She let go of my face and stood up, resting her hands on her hips. Everywhere is a change of scenery for her, though. In fact, the room is the one place that would hardly count as a change of scenery. Margaret chuckled, sounding a little exasperated. Give it a rest. You caught her mucking about with herself.
When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down.